I was so relaxed that no decisions were hard. It's like when we're having like a really bad day, or like, like you like when we started the podcast, like the first part was like you were kind of ticked off. Like when we're hungry, when we're angry, when we're put under pressure, big decisions or small decisions seem like they're huge. You're like, I don't know. You make up your mind. Like you decide this. This is I can't do this right now. You're like, dude, I just asked you like what cup you wanted me to put your water in. It's not that big of a deal. Relax.
How's it going, buddy?
Oh man, you sound clear and crisp.
That's great. That's good news, man.
You sound like you could be in your childhood bedroom. That's the acoustic vibe right now.
Yeah, well, I actually, that's a good projection there. I am in one of my childhood bedrooms. It's the basement with it's now my mom's storage area for her arts and crafts store down in Beloit. Yeah, there's a lot of clowns and. No, I'm kidding.
I was gonna say it sounds like kind of creepy.
No, really. If you're coming up to the race and you're driving through Beloit, Wisconsin, pop into the Nest Egg down there on West Grand Avenue. That's where
the Nest Egg. I like it.
Yep.
Nest Egg.
She's had it for about 20 years. It's the most popular shop in the state line. For gifts.
I have no doubt. And hey, with the guys like you and I that continue to churn out podcasts on holidays like Labor Day, we might be able to start up and fund our own little Nest Egg here on a state line gift shop.
Ooh, Nest Egg on South.
Yeah, the Nest Egg. Part 2.0, the extension and maintain the legacy. But hey, for those of you that are joining us, it is Labor Day. It is September 1st. September 2nd. It is 2019, and this is the Crushing Iron Triathlon podcast. We come to you mostly Monday and Thursday, but we come to you twice a week and have so for going on 3 years. This is episode 298 or 299?
This is 299, my man.
They catch a niner in there. Episode 299. We are churning away. We will be celebrating during podcast 300, which we'll be doing. We'll be recording live on Friday, this coming Friday, in Madison, Wisconsin for Ironman Wisconsin. We have an event group for that you can find in our Facebook group, which is, if you're not in it and you want to be a part of it, you can always search Crushing Iron Group on Facebook and we will let you in. But we have what you're going to do, record it live, and honestly, I have no idea how it's going to go. But you and I have always done this in separate houses, sometimes and often separate cities.
We have done it in the same car before.
We have done it in the same car before. It was, I think that was Galveston 70.3 last year, where we did it in the car. And actually, people enjoyed that podcast, I think. But we will, honestly, it's not going to be some super special guest podcast, but we want to do it because we want to meet as many of you that listen to us as possible. So if we can get all 8 of you to show up, that would be awesome. Yeah. We're looking forward to meeting each of you. But no, in all seriousness, I'm really happy about or excited about it. I'm excited about making the trip to Madison in general. We're heading up, you and I both. You're already close to there in Madison, but I'll be heading up to Madison on Wednesday with good old Tommy Bonds, and we will all be getting ready for Ironman Wisconsin coming on this Sunday.
Yes, we will, man. And yes, I am here. I have crossed the Wisconsin state line.
Right, you were there.
It's a little toasty today.
Yeah,
but it's going down
this weekend. Yeah, it's going to go down quite a bit.
Well, it looks like it. You never know. I mean,
it's true. As soon as Chuck Knuth enters the stratosphere, things could change. Okay. But hey, if it's your first time listening, hey, we appreciate you joining us. And if you are spending your holiday listening to Mike and I go back and forth, this is a triathlon-related podcast, but we like to cover life, triathlon training. We do cover lots of race recaps and breakdowns and course previews and the like. But the most important thing we at least try to accomplish in every podcast is give you actionable advice that you and I have had from either personal experience or through the athletes that we have the opportunity and the pleasure to work with, and hopefully give you the opportunity to not have to go through the same obstacles and hiccups that you and I have both gone through in our athletic careers and also within life, and then hopefully in your triathlon career. So if we can do any of that today, we'll consider it a heck of a podcast.
Yeah, it could be. And as you, I don't know exactly where today is going to go, but as you could tell, I was a little bit testy earlier.
Yeah, you were a little bit testy, and I generally had a place I wanted to go that was generally positive, kind of like.
No, I think we should. I think it helped me to lift me out of this.
Okay, good. It was almost going to be like my pregame coach speak before heading into a big race. I had a lot of good thoughts today, or at least I thought they were good thoughts.
You do seem real positive. You shook me right out of my funk.
Well, good. That's my job. But no, we listen. There's a lot of people racing this weekend. We've got, at least for the athletes that we coach, a lot of different races: marathons, half marathons, Olympic sprints. We got Ironman Wisconsin. We got 70.3s that our athletes are going to be doing in Australia, out in California, Santa Cruz, Lake Placid, where it's going to be like freezing, basically. So all over. But there's a couple things that kind of got me thinking about today's podcast and what might a good topic be. And it actually didn't come from thinking about a race, although I think it is totally race related. It got me, I got to think about that. I was going through some Training Peaks comments and feedbacks from athletes that are kind of entering in the off season and really trying to kind of see and picture where they want to be this time next year. And everyone's excited, and I kind of mentioned this to you, I think, a little bit in jest of how I wanted the podcast to go about college football. And as a Tennessee Volunteer fan, I have nothing to talk about today.
Nothing?
I'll get there. Just give me a second. But I do. Yeah. But what I think I wrote down like 7 or 8 times just in the last few hours in responses was a phrase very similar to: the biggest thing right now that you can focus on is to let the speed and the strength come to you. Don't try to go to it. And it's a great topic, I think, for the race as well, but racing, in that when the off season is a very exciting time for most athletes, because you basically feel like you get a clean slate. You get to start over. You get to be almost somebody new. You get to put like the past year behind you. You get this whole year in front of you that you have no idea what's going to happen, and all you're thinking is positive thoughts. Oh, I want to do this. Oh, I want to do that. And I can do this. And if I just do this, I'm going to start working out right now. I'm not even going to take a break. I'm just going to crush through. I'm going to start doing 16 hours a week. I'm going to buy every training plan I can find. I'm going to do 18 hours, 20 hours, 25 hours. And then reality sits in. You're like, this Christmas party sounds like a good idea. I'm going to go. I'm going to eat a lot. And next thing you know, I'm blazing through January, February. March comes around. I'm like, I get back in shape around May. Once it's warmer outside, I hate my trainer. And then next thing you know, you find yourself right back at square one. Or you get so amped up within those hours that you end up hurting yourself for trying to chase a result. And that was kind of the sentiment I was trying to get across to these specific athletes, was that there's a lot of work to be done. And you've seen it through the entire course of the year that you're going to get faster, you're going to get stronger. But as you kind of have this exciting time, which is transitions generally can always be very exciting. And sometimes they're exciting for the wrong reasons, in terms that it kind of allows you to be in denial of what the requirement actually is to succeed on a certain level. And that's why I just kind of hopefully was drilling into them like, yes, it's great to be excited about getting fast, and it's wonderful to be excited about getting strong. But when that feeling and those emotions tend to force you into making very poor choices and trying to maybe take a shortcut into getting there, going too hard on a workout day, you're not going to get there overnight. And that was kind of what I was actually texting you about on Saturday, is about the Tennessee football team. And everybody was like, I'm a Tennessee fan, been a Tennessee football fan for my entire life. And everybody was like, everyone has these feelings of, this is our year, baby. Everyone in the off season, you kind of have that, or in the preseason of every sport, it has this thought of, this is our year. We got this. Like you fool yourself because you don't actually see what you have on the table. And as the Tennessee Vols presented to us as Exhibit A, you can tweet and Facebook and put every emotional and motivational quote on Instagram you want to get your fans hyped up, and the players can act like this and that. But when the push comes to shove, you actually have to get out there and perform. And if you don't do all the small things that lead you to perform, your chit-chat and your Facebook posts and your Instagram motivational messages mean absolutely nothing.
Zero.
But you know what? they're so easy. Because I can get on Facebook right now. I don't have Instagram anymore, but I can get on Facebook and post like a super motivational quote, and people are like, dude, I love that. You go get it, man. And here I am just sitting on my bum, not doing anything. But boy, am I motivated, and I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it. And then tomorrow wakes up and nothing happens. But
well, it's just a thought. It's not an action, you know.
That's what drives me nuts. Anyway, back to the positive spin. That's what got me to thinking about race day, and when athletes go into a race, and how everyone this week, because idle minds for triathletes is like the worst thing ever. Because they're athletes are on Amazon or Slow Twitch right now, figuring out what to buy and who to buy it from and what gear to get because they're so bored, or they're on TriCalc, or they're figuring out what speed they can get, or if they do this, they do that, they can probably get here. And again, it all rolls themselves back into forcing themselves into X, or forcing themselves into Y or Z, or whatever it is. It's about forcing and trying to put yourself in a place when you have no idea what's going to happen. And so really just what I wanted to talk about was that the things that are, we always talk about controlling your controllables is effort and execution. And then kind of going back to the training people in the off season is like, letting that speed come to you is very much like race day, is like letting the race come to you, because you're going to see a lot of athletes who are going into this with these, and I think listen, I'm not telling you it's not logical to think this way, and I'm not telling you that I haven't thought this way in the past, and I don't still sometimes think this way currently, but I can tell you as a coach and as an athlete that the athletes that I know that perform the best are prepared to do two things: put forth their best effort within the parameters of their ideal execution. And those are two things that you can control. And I kind of flip back on this as I kind of going back and forth, but it's the same ideas. I had an athlete who was giving me feedback and basically had moved to a totally different state where the climate is totally different, the terrain is totally different. There's a whole lot of transition with kids in new schools, medical things, all things you can't control. You can't control the heat, you can't control the terrain, you can't control the humidity, you can't control the stress that you're putting your kids back in school in a new state can have, or just that transition in general. You can't control any of that. Those are things outside of your control. The only thing you have control over is to make smart decisions in response to those that are in your best interest. And that's the only way that you can feel and be somewhat successful when obstacles and stressors like that happen. And so if you take that and you put it in a bottle of like a race day scenario, and you think about how many people aren't equipped or haven't mentally prepared to take on a race that is going to be incredibly long. We're thinking, for the fastest athletes, age groupers, we're talking 9 to 16, maybe close to 17 hours. You know how long that is?
That's long.
That's a long day, man. And so where I wanted to go is like that. The simplest way to do is say, and if this is your race week, or you're listening to it on your race week, whenever that is, or you're replaying it for whatever reason, is to focus on those two things: your effort and your execution. Because not only are those going to allow you to be your best self on race day, but the most important aspect of it is it's going to leave you totally fulfilled when you cross the finish line. Because if you can say to yourself, I did well, I executed, and I gave my best effort, whatever else happened is out of my control. No matter what place you landed in your age group, no matter if you landed on the podium, no matter if you hit the split you wanted to on the bike, or the swim, or the run, or if you ended up qualifying for Kona. None of those things are in your control. Those are outside parameters that are directly affected by the environment, by other people, and who showed up, and how the race day progressed. But the only thing that you should be able to look back on and say is, I'm really proud of myself today because I executed and I put forth the best effort that I possibly had, and I didn't give up. Because I promise you, it's odd that I was thinking about this today. I was running with Allie and we were talking, and I was thinking, I think there's been a point in every single race I've ever ran and participated in, when there's a triathlon or running race, where I thought to myself, oh man, I think I'm about ready to walk.
Oh yeah.
Every single one. I think I just think I think walking would sound awesome right now. And the times that I've like taken a short break and walked versus the times that I've continued to run, when I got done with the race, and I'm not saying walking is bad. If you want to listen to somebody say walking is bad, you can listen to Mike Tarrolly talking about walking the marathon a couple hundred podcasts ago. And listen to that.
It was like early.
It wasn't early. We're making lots of mistakes.
But
having said that, is that having had conversations with athletes and having done this myself that have just made the decision not to give up and to continue to put that effort forward, the amount of, I guess, just how proud they are of themselves for fighting through and whatever you're saying, fighting the good fight or not giving up and executing their plan, that leaves athletes more proud and happy and content than pretty much any other race result has.
I can see that, man. I mean, the more I go round and round about this, and you and I have been talking about, having conversations just like this for 7 or so years. And, me from the get-go, I've been pretty strong on my devotion to training by feel. And I still believe in it so hard, and it's just, I don't know if I really kind of think now I'm getting a better handle on it finally. I mean, I've always sort of believed in it, and it comes back to this idea of, I actually just ran into a guy, went down for a swim at the place locally here, and I saw a guy who actually is in my age group, and he's qualified for Kona out of my age group, and we talked for a little while, and he was kind of, talking about numbers and watts and all that stuff. I go, dude, I'm just going to go. I mean, I feel like I've trained up well, so my whole goal is just to do exactly what you were just saying earlier, is just, stay within myself and do the best I can and really find a place where I can keep going and whatever happens, but I feel good about where I'm at. And it's a lot of pressure. I keep thinking about, it's so weird because you put pressure on yourself for these races, and you're talking about, as you said, 9 to 16 or 17 hours. That's a long time. And then here we are, we sit there and squabble in our brains over 5 or 10 minutes. Like, how am I going to make sure that I don't lose 5 minutes on that bike? Or, you know what I mean? Like, what a weight to carry around.
Dude, you took their words right out of my mouth. Is the weight of those expectations and of adhering to your false premise of what I should be able to do today based on something you decided a year ago or a month ago, with having no idea how you're going to feel on race day.
Mm-hmm.
The weight of having, and I can tell you this from 100% personal experience. I've been there. I used to do this all the time before I got sober. In every race, I would put all these expectations on myself, and a lot of it was just, a lot of them, and the funny part is, a lot of them I knew were total BS. But I had almost no way of getting them unless it was the perfect race.
Right. It's almost like how much would you bet everything you own on, really? And then look at it that perspective. You probably would not have done what you're talking about.
No, $0. I would put $0 on it. But that's the thing, and that's the weight that you see athletes carrying is, and I mean, I'll be honest, a lot of it that you see is also the weight of the weight of their social media parade that they've put on over the last 2 years leading up to an event, which I think is a tremendous burden that I think a lot of athletes don't talk about or probably wouldn't even like me bringing up. I'm not saying that talking about your accomplishments and your goals and training on Facebook or Instagram is a bad thing, but I do think it comes into play because I think when you already have this much put on one day and one I think it's just kind of interesting. If you look at Olympic athletes who are going to compete, I highly doubt most of them every day are hashtag Tokyo 2020. Hashtag Tokyo.
You don't think?
No, they're too busy getting the work done. You're I have no idea what I'm even going to be like when I get to Tokyo 2020, and this time it's this time next year. But so I think when you said the weight of that, when you always hear that phrase everyone has a plan till they get punched in the mouth. Everyone has an expectation until the weight becomes too much to bear, and then they give up. And I think that happens with athletes on race day in terms of they've expected so much, where they see a mile per hour and they see I've got to hold 19 miles an hour in order for me to get this time that I want. And then that's going to set me up for success, and I'll be able to run 11:20 pace. I'm going to finish at 13 hours and 25 minutes. And then they come out of the water and it's been a rougher swim, or maybe the swim was long. Okay, like I just think about like little details like that are so often overlooked, that yet we base ourselves off that. And I use this analogy a lot with athletes. Is like it's how unpredictable scales are. You could put 17 scales up, and I bet you they would all read something somewhat some kind of variability within difference. Yet we're going to basically judge whether we've been gaining weight or losing weight, and whether that's going to be a positive or negative effect on our emotions for the day based on a digital number that's been on the scale based on what we assumed. So you go into races and you think, all right, I'm going to swim. I'm definitely going to swim, a 1 hour swim today. I mean, I know I got that in me. That's going to put me in great shape. I'm going to be at the head of my age group and set myself up for success. And then getting when you come out and it reads 1:07. Your initial thought's going to be, oh my God, I'm 7 minutes behind. Or I just don't have it today.
I know, right? Yeah.
And that's your first thought. And the reality is you might, and more than likely, you're going to wake up. Or you could, I guess, wake up the next day and be like, and there, of course, there's going to be like some gigantic Facebook thread on the Ironman Wisconsin Facebook page. Hey guys, did you measure the swim long? I measured the swim like at least 123 yards, 0.7 distance long. Like it was definitely long.
Definitely long.
I'm not sure what kind of lines you put. I'm always like a street swimmer, and I'm usually averaging like 135 in the pool. It had me averaging like 205s. First off, you could, yeah, well, shocker, yeah, but there is not talking about putting money on something. There's not a GPS device on this planet that I trust to exactly calculate large yardage or meters in open water. Zero. I don't trust any of it. It's like trying to trust your optical heart rate sensor. I don't put any weight behind it. Having said that, is that mental shift you have is like, oh, now I'm behind. When you don't even know you're behind. You might be farther ahead than you actually thought you were. But just a small expectation like that has now ignited different decision making throughout the course of your day. Or you had the swim of your life. Yet you come out of the next day, it was 2 miles, not 2.4. But it's just interesting, I think, how early on in races people make these decisions very abruptly and impulsively based on who they are already. I can tell you right now from experience and through athletes, you aren't going to know what kind of day you're having until mile 60, 70, or 80 of the bike. You're not going to have any idea. You got to let some stuff happen. Don't be the person who spills their first cup of coffee and ruins their day. Or don't be, and I do this a lot of times, don't have your first sip of coffee and be like, today's going to be stellar. Yeah. And then like 30 minutes later, your 3-year-old wakes up and you're like, now I'm back in hell again. But that's those the small like impulsive emotions that we all go through on race day that I just think are so interesting. And going back to what you said about having the weight of it, but the weight of having to decipher all of the emotions and the kind of the mental game, the mental and emotional game on race day, and doing that for longer than a work day. 12, 13, like basically you're going to go work out and race against the clock and against other competitors in a different environment than you've ever trained on before, in an event that you've never been in maybe, and you're going to do it for basically like longer than a work day, which I think is kind of crazy to think about. You're just going to be exercising all day long.
It's nuts, man.
It's crazy.
I've got two perfect examples that line up with that. Like one was last year at Louisville. It's like I got off the bike with my worst bike ever by far, and it was freezing and raining the whole day, and I still had a target in mind for my run that I thought could, compensate or whatever like that. And I've talked about this before, but instead of recalibrating everything, I just kind of like gave up on the initial goal. So in other words, if I would have had, say, let's just for simplicity say sub 12 in my mind, and I got off the bike knowing that wasn't possible. So instead of saying, hey, you know what, maybe I should try to do 12:10, And then in other words, I was like, well, it's going to be 12:30 now, or whatever the case may be. So if I would have recalibrated and said, or maybe this is like halfway through the marathon, I was like, okay, I can't get what I want to get. So instead of just making that, shifting that needle just a little bit to within the realm of where I was feeling that day, I kind of threw it away. And in reality, if I would have done that shift and said, okay, let's reset this goal, that was a little high, but you probably can get this. That would have put me in the top 10 easily last year, and instead I was about 14th. It's just a little thing, but it makes a difference. And the other example I was going to say was my first year at Wisconsin. I had a silent goal in my head of like doing 11:30 and surprising everyone in the world in my first Ironman. I had this like competitive, like, you know what, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to try and do this.
In the world.
Yeah.
As if, like, that's how important we think we're like,
I know, right? Yeah.
I'm going to shock the world, baby.
It gets so self-important, this thing is just like it overruns your brain. Yeah. And you do think that everyone's watching, and not anybody gives a crap. But the reality is so at 11:30 at Wisconsin, that's a tough nut to crack on your first one, especially anytime, because the bike course just doesn't give itself up to fast, rides and whatever. Mm-hmm. But so I had these numbers but when I got out of the water, those numbers were gone. Like that, there was no chance of me getting that. So, and it was my first, and I think that might have been the biggest blessing of my day, actually, is because it just was like, all right, now I'll just kind of go out and be solid and steady and just get through this thing. And it turned out, and I came in under 12, which was really well. I mean, I'm very proud of that. And to think if I would have came out and say, 15 minutes faster in that swim and tried to go out there and just blow everything up, I could have easily been walking that back half of that marathon instead of holding it in, just kind of like, all right, you can't do that, so let's do something realistic now.
Mm-hmm. It's funny to say, one of the best executed races in relation to producing the best result given my fitness is Ironman Louisville. The last year you and I did it, back when it was in August. Mm-hmm. I was I got out of treatment in February and had basically done like not much at all, zero training while I was getting sober. But so I was not coming off like some huge consistent year of training. And the previous year had been like the biggest cluster in my entire life. But that race, I remember vividly. And that was kind of a special race for you and I. But I remember so many parts of that race, and I remember having zero expectations for that race. I remember going into it, I was fairly emotional, but I just remember thinking, man, I'm here, I'm healthy. I have absolutely no clue what I'm capable of today, which I think if most athletes are being honest, they don't either. And I think that kind of scares athletes, because most athletes like to be in control and know what to expect so they can know how to counter. But the freeing part for me that day was having zero expectations. And so I had to play it minute by minute. I swam so controlled, and then my bike, I remember the first 20 miles I was like smiling because I saw so many people just like flying by me, and I didn't even care. I was like, yeah, see you later. I know that right now I'm currently in my race happy place because I'm like smiling and having a good time. And the most freeing part for me was because that having that thought process and that kind of being in that emotional mental state, I was so relaxed that no decisions were hard. It's like when we're having like a really bad day, or you when we started the podcast, like the first part was like you were kind of ticked off. Like when we're hungry, when we're angry, when we're put under pressure, big decisions or small decisions seem like they're huge. You're like I don't know. You make up your mind. Like you decide this. This is I can't do this right now. You're like, dude, I just asked you what cup you want me to put your water in. It's not that big of a deal. Relax. But athletes get like that on race day and like the days leading up, because those expectations build. And I just remember feeling so free that day. And I think probably my best race ever in terms of getting the most out of who I was that day when I got in the water. And it was and up until that point in my career, my triathlon hobbyist career, it was the best overall placement. That was like top 100 overall. And I was so proud of that, not because of where I was, but because it was an affirmation of that's how you should go into every race, is just being relaxed. Because the decisions that you have to make when you're relaxed no longer seem like these gigantic, overwhelming, race-killing or race-making decisions. They just are what they are. And then when things continue to develop and you get to the point to where like the back half of the marathon, you're like I played this day so smart. That alone, that feeling gives you so much hope and strength to finish the way that you want to finish, because you've done everything right up until that point. Because there's no such thing as second guessing. Because nothing you did was that huge or that impulsive that where you found yourself thinking, you know what? That hill back at mile 60, I knew I shouldn't have just slammed my way up there. If you're just acknowledging every minute and every mile who you are right then on that day, and you're respecting that, then you really can't make a bad decision.
Yeah. That's a really good way to look at it, man. And it's like, again, it's like how many, you talk about burning matches, and let's just say small matches within a race or whatever, you know, like how many of those you have. It's like, to me, that's the tricky part, is sometimes, you know, it's one thing to be kind of rolling along and smiling and having a good time and everything like that. And then at some point, so you got to kind of, I mean, you know what I'm talking about? How do you navigate this idea of like, all right, we got to get our butt in gear a little bit? Because sometimes when we're just out riding, you know, for fun or whatever, and we want to go after it, we have to kind of just ignite that fire a little bit. So,
right.
And then how do you, I guess it's, to me, that's what I love about that slow burn, that slow build throughout the day. It's kind of like if you kind of do, if you just, it's almost like if you running without a watch, as we talk about all the time, if you just sort of do that, it's funny how sometimes if I don't look at my watch and I just run, right, for maybe 45 minutes, and then I'll look at it later and I feel like the effort was the same, but you just get faster, a little bit faster over time. You get a little bit faster, and it's just sort of this, your body's like, okay, this is what we're doing. I'm a little more relaxed. And if you can be that relaxed thing, and that's what I love talking about being relaxed so much, is that when you relax and you know, and your body kind of has this built-in repetition in your inside, you've ran miles and hundreds of miles and rode hundreds and hundreds of miles, the body sort of takes over. And it's like, all right, we can do this. You don't have to always think about what we're doing. You know, and I think that's the misnomer sometimes. It's always that we have to kind of think our way into pushing ourselves harder, when in reality, if you can find a nice relaxed place, your body will just kind of roll through it and get stronger and stronger and stronger throughout the ride. I mean, you've seen it all the time. How many times have you been out riding where you're at hour 2 and you're like, oh man, I feel good right now. I felt terrible the first 2 hours of this ride. And now all of a sudden you're feeling good. So
it's, and again, it goes back to like, it's relieving yourself of
the burden.
The burden and the decision. It's like relieving yourself of like the decision-making process, where you are more than likely going to make, most athletes, the wrong decision. Not because you're incapable, or not because you're not prepared, not because the fitness isn't there, but because when you're put in a position to where you have to take into account so many different things, whether it's what you thought you were be today, or where your goal was today, and what your expectations were today, where you thought you'd be by here, and I thought by mile 30 it'd be averaging like 18.8 miles an hour, then everything is skewed. Everything. But when you can just treat yourself as basically a stranger on race day, is exactly how you should treat yourself. I'm a stranger. I haven't been this fit and this fresh all year. I am a totally 100% different athlete than I was this time last year, than I was a week ago, than I was a day ago, than I was 6 months ago. So I can't have expectations for somebody I don't know. But what I can do is I can get to know it and then make the best decisions that I can make every minute, every mile, every sport, until I find myself thinking, all right, I can take this with me home. And if you can take that stranger and think, you know what, this is the fitness that I have today. I get to mile 13. I'm going to take the reins right now, and I'm going to drive this train. And if you can just have that patient thought process of basically, and I know it sounds like almost counterintuitive and like almost impossible, but is to like think, you know what, like I basically need to walk onto the pier or the beach or whatever, or swim start, whatever it is you're going, with a blank slate. Because today could be a record-breaking historic day for me. Or it could be one of those days where I will find myself saying, this was my slowest quote-unquote time to date, but I've never been more proud of finishing. And if you can set yourself up for success to be one of those things that day, and just to execute the fitness that you have without some preconceived expectation or time, then you're going to feel that way. And if you can race free and you can race relaxed and you can be smart, then I think like 9 times out of 100 you're destined for a great race. And so I think that is the main thing that I would love to get across to athletes racing this weekend or racing whenever, because people don't listen to this podcast when it comes out all the time, is be free and be relaxed, because everyone makes decisions that are usually best when they're not impulsive, they're not made under stress, they're not made under with a, like you said, like a tremendous weight and burden of an expectation. Because sometimes, and this is many times, you might, and we talk about like maybe things being more of a struggle, but on the flip side, because I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this point, is many athletes might find themselves feeling, I had no idea I was this, or I was capable of this. And so if they're married to a pace, they might dial it back and think, this isn't me. I don't have this today. I can't do this. This isn't me. Yeah, your body's like, hello, take your blindfold off. This is me. I am you. Let's get rolling. Like, I've got it. Mm-hmm. And so you got to respect and believe that you can make those decisions and be that kind of person on race day that's going to have fun, that's going to be relaxed, that's going to execute your plan, whatever that looks like, to the best of your ability. And if you can do that, then things will work out the way they should.
There's really a fine line between, as you were saying that, I thought kind of an analogy of like, sometimes I think of it this way maybe, is that the brain is the CEO.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of your body is sort of the org chart. Your right arm, your left arm, your knee, whatever. Everything about your body is kind of the org chart or the structure of the company or the entity that you're doing. And so the worst CEOs are the ones that always stick their fingers in every little decision. So it's sometimes you got to kind of let that, it's sort of like, hey, we know what we're supposed to do. Good job. Right lats. Today you had a great game. You know what I'm saying?
Right lats.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, I think that is something that I think about. Sometimes you go through these, you can ride for 20 miles or swim for a mile and kind of not be thinking about anything. And it's kind of like, how did that even happen? It's like your body just sort of took over and your brain wasn't always going, all right, swim. We need that right arm to come around. Come on. It's like that doesn't happen. It's just sort of built into your DNA, your fiber, and this ability to sort of be laissez-faire as a leader with your brain and only make the big decisions, The brain should be the smart decisions on the day. It's like, okay, I need to hold back here or whatever. So it's like everybody hold back, right, or whatever. And now it's like, all right, we can adjust to that. Now you don't like constantly like say, no. You're not always yelling at them to kind of slow down. It's like this ability to release. Make the big decisions, the good decisions with your brain. Think clear, be in the moment. And that's just a huge underrated thing. It's like being in your box, being in your moment is so critical on such a long day, because the minute you start thinking about things that are way out ahead that haven't happened yet, then your mind, your body's going to be like, wait a minute, what am I supposed to be doing here? It's like, I love thinking about and approaching things like that, because you have to obviously make big decisions. There's hundreds and hundreds of them, but sometimes it's like, all right, we got this, boss, or whatever. That's kind of what I feel like happens, without overthinking. And because the brain seems like it is the place where all the burden starts,
And if you can stop the burden starting, or cut it off before it even gets rolling, that's when you feel the best.
Mm-hmm.
That's when tension is at the least. That's when expectations aren't even there because they're not even low. They don't even exist. And just think about how much more fun that is to go into any situation in life and relationships, thinking, you know what, all I know is I'm gonna do the best I can, and whatever happens, happens. Like the mentality and like the amount of relaxed, like the level of tension that is not there versus the person who goes into it. Like, I mean, you get to, like, from a business like aspect or relationship, you have a person walking into a meeting or onto a date, and they're like, they have all these expectations. I can't mess up. I got to be perfect. I got to do this. I got to nail it. If I don't, people are going to think I'm terrible, or she's going to think I'm dumb, or it's going to be totally offensive. And I got to be perfect. Like that person, the level of tension and stress that always tend to lead towards making bad decisions or doing things you wouldn't normally do, versus a person who's thinking, you know what, this is important, but with the most, because that's the thing, right? Is that like these are important races to us. These are, like you said, like, I'm gonna shock the world, dude. Like, the world, really? Like, we don't even, and you know, like you're not even like the best guy in the cul-de-sac. What do you mean the world? And
that might be on this block.
Yeah, that's probably true. But when you think of it that way, it's like, versus the guys like, you know what, it's important to us, and that's huge. But also go and say, you know what, it is important to me, and I recognize that, but it's not who I am, and this isn't going to define me. The result will not define me. How I execute today and how I approach this race and how relaxed I can be, that's how I want to define myself, and that's the standard that I'd like to set. And so I think that, you know, versus the person who's super stressed and tense, if you can go into these events with a thought and a feeling of, this is important, but no matter what happens, I'm going to do my best, and whatever my best is, whatever that looks like today, I can be happy with that and move on. I think the difference in tension and stress between those two people is huge. And so if you can be that latter person who goes in and acknowledges how important the day is, because again, I think that's also another piece that's often not talked about, is like the people who go into the race too blasé. You know what, it's like, you know, it's been kind of a whatever year, and like I don't really expect a lot, so like it's okay for it to be important. I want to make sure I'm clear about that, is that it's okay and it is important, but it's how you approach it, and the theme and the feeling that importance has, and how it determines what kind of decisions you make that ultimately lead to this day, and it hopefully being what you had always dreamed it being. Mm-hmm. But I can promise you that dream or that thought of that time will be totally 100% overshadowed by the feeling that you get those last 200 meters of your finish, especially if it's your first one. The feeling that you get squanders and suppresses and demolishes and drowns out every possible feeling you could have over a result, because it's the feeling that you had. And if you can cross that kind of that threshold onto that red carpet, from the pavement to the red carpet, I know it's weird. It's like some like time space continuum of like mass feelings and emotions. Like once you go from the asphalt, the concrete, to that red carpet, it's like, all the pain goes away. Everything is wonderful. Glory be to the Ironman gods that I'm here right now. And then you finish and you're flooded with all these emotions and thoughts. And again, like most of the time, like when you see people, their thought isn't about the time. Their thought is, I can't believe I just did that. And I overcame that, because they're thinking like a million things at once. They're thinking like, what happened those first 200 meters of swim? What happened to the guy that transitioned? Those first 2 miles of bike were terrible. Oh my God, I can't believe I overcame that. I kept going and I wanted to walk and I didn't. I ran that. Oh my gosh, I ended up running the whole way. And now look at me, I did it. They're like doing that like fast forward, like rewind you see in the movies of like going back and playing things. It's not the time, because they probably even can tell you what the time was. Because you can't even see the clock. The lights are like, super bright and glaring in your eyes. You probably forgot to stop your Garmin, if it's even like not in transition 6 by now, because you hit the lap times. It's like nobody knows. So like you're just so pumped to be there, right? It's like,
I gave up on that thing a long time ago.
Right, dude. You're like, just stop hitting the lap button, man. Just keep rolling.
Lap button. It's so weird that I can't even do that, but I gave up.
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't know.
No, your head is so weird. You're like, did I just hit that or did I not? It's like shooting video. A lot of times there's a thing called a double punch, and a lot of times you don't roll on something because you started and then you stopped it by mistake, so you did the whole interview and you didn't even record it. But anyway, it's I would like to say that, as we talk about, how to kind of stay within yourself, enjoy the day. I mean, the part about it's important is big to me because it is very important. Obviously, it's important. We've thought about it every day for the year, most of us that have been training for it, and it's taken a big spot in our life. So, I mean, we are always about, keeping it enjoyable and fun, but there's definitely a competitive thing here. So competing with yourself mostly. And I keep thinking back to let's say the day is supposed to be out your average at 70%. And, that 70% is kind of, and I think of those emojis, that one with the straight mouth across where it's just kind of like neutral, and then, but if you get up in that 75 to 80, that's when that kind of frown starts coming on and the anger. I think that's that little range there you got to be aware of. And I always like to think of that. It's there's certain amounts of times I can push myself up into that 80% area where I'm going to get a little bit kind of feisty. And if the more you can kind of stay in a place where you're sort of neutral about things, but you're not going through the motions, you're just being efficient and doing your day, that's where you want to stay. And you only have so much of that frowny face guy that you can really pull out, and that should be probably at the end, where you're not talking to anybody or seeing anybody. You're just kind of beelining as hard as you can to get to the end of this thing, and that's okay. But to try to do that for the whole day, I think could be a really bad experiment.
I agree with that. Sometimes sticking to the end of this podcast could be a really good or a really bad experiment.
Yeah.
I do want to say, as we'll wrap this podcast up on the holiday, I will end it with some breaking news that we have won the Tri-Club championship for Ironman Wisconsin. So we will be throwing a little shindig for our listeners and our team at some point. I'm not sure when, but we have taken a last-minute come-from-behind victory over, I think it was Team BMC, which, I don't even know who that is, but I think they're local. So congrats to them on second place. You're the first loser. And,
he throws it out on
come on, man. It's
you guys made a good effort.
Yeah, you guys did good. It's all in good fun. As Mike Tarrolly led the Crushing Iron Facebook page in a Rudy-esque rally the troops chant over the weekend.
Mile 20.
We have taken the victory, so we'll be sporting a $1,000 gift card. Which, let's see, you and I get in Wednesday.
That's not chump change, bro.
No, dude. You and I get in Wednesday night. So
that'll be gone by Thursday.
I was gonna say, so let's see. By the time we get the crew together on Saturday, maybe we'll use it for Saturday pre-race brunch. We're looking at, after Mike and I eat, we're looking at probably 3 double stacks of pancakes for the team to split. So again, appreciate you guys feeding Mike and I. No, but again, back to Madison, we will be up there. Looking forward to meeting and talking to anyone. If you're going to be in Madison, you have the time and you'd like to come, we would really love to at least meet you at some point. And obviously we'll be doing that live podcast, a live recorded podcast for podcast 300, and that is on Friday at 10 a.m. And we will have myself and Mike will be there, obviously, and then we'll have another one of our athletes, Jessica Jacobs, who is a former pro and has the Ironman champion, or Ironman Wisconsin champion in 2011 or 12, I think. She'll be there. She has obviously a lot of knowledge about the course and has been, I would say, somewhat successful on it. She's also competing on Sunday. So hope you show up, search for the event, part of the group. If you have never been, hop on over, crushingiron.com. It is our one-stop shop for all things training, coaching, camps, gear, the club, swim analysis, you name it, it's on there. I'll see you in Madison.
Sounds like a plan, brother.
All right, dude.
Have a safe trip up, and I'll see you on Wednesday.
Perfect.
All right, buddy. Take care.